Hello and welcome to the interview. I'm Sudhir Chaudhary and you are watching WION World is One. India is making global headlines. Prime Minister Modi has done the impossible. He has won the biggest democratic mandate in the world. And today we have a man who pulled off another seemingly impossible win, the victory of Donald Trump as America's president. With me today is Steve Bannon, political strategist and media mogul. And we are also joined by Shalabh Kumar, prominent Indian American who has worked closely with Donald Trump's campaign. Mr. Bannon and Mr. Kumar, welcome to WION.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Bannon, Prime Minister Modi is all set to begin his second term. In India, we call it the Modi 2.0 version. He has a bigger majority this time and he has more elbow room. How do you view this for the future of India-US relations?
Well, look, when Modi first won 5 years ago, I was very proud of the fact that Breitbart, which is a conservative kind of a right-wing site in the United States, a news site, we covered that election very closely. And the reason was the day he won, we put a headline that he was India's Reagan. And I've been, incredibly impressed with Modi since the first day I heard of him and started following him in Indian politics. And I would tell the people in India, what I believe just happened is exactly like Ronald Reagan's second win in 1984, his major landslide, which was about him personally and the job he had done. I mean, I think the Western media is absolutely stunned by the scale of the Modi victory. I would say I'm not, because I had tremendous confidence that he would win and he'd win again big. So I think, we'll get to this in a little while about the China situation and other things. It only bodes well for the future relationship with the United States. But the people in India should understand, you come with a lot of power. And one of the reasons you've empowered Modi, right now on the world stage, I think that he is one of the most powerful of all politicians, simply for the fact, not just the country and how powerful India is, but the mandate that the Indian people gave him for his second term. We had Shalli came into our studio in New York at Sirius XM, which is the largest radio network in the United States. I remember we would have him in our studio in New York talking specifically about this topic, even before we got into the campaign of Trump, to talk about how Modi had really set a template, very Reagan-esque, about the economy, about national defense, and basically the way he related to the middle class and to the working class. And so Shalli was the one that brought that to our attention, and that was as early as January of 2013, which is several years before even Trump came on the scene. So Modi is just, I think, set an incredible standard, high standard for how a politician should comport himself.
India and America face a lot of common challenges. There's much scope for partnership. What was lacking earlier was political will. In your opinion, what should Indian PM Modi and US President Trump be doing to enhance the Indo-US relationship to help it achieve its full potential?
I think that's the question that people in the United States are asking. As you know, sir, what has changed in the last 2 years and really in the last year, that the United States, and I take great pride in being a small part of this in the campaign and when I was in the administration, has now engaged with China on this economic war that China has been running against the industrial democracies in the West, and also Japan, India, and other of the Western allies. And, we're at a point that the people in the United States and Japan and Western Europe are not going to back down. They understand that the Chinese, with Western capital and Western technology, has been trying to become a hegemonic power in the Pacific, a hegemonic power on the landmass Eurasia. We're here today in Kazakhstan, and the reason we're here is to start to really find out the depths of what's going on in this One Belt, One Road situation. But I can tell you, the United States is engaged now countering this economic war with China, and I think India is going to be a key ally of that. If there's any country in the world that's exposed to this expansionist mentality of this radical cadre of the Chinese Communist Party, this radical cadre that controls China, it's India. And I think that Modi and Trump will be two natural allies in the United States If this thing's to be pushed back on, it's got to be Japan, India, and the United States. Those are the three most important nations to do this. And I see very good things ahead of us as far as allies go.
You just mentioned China. We know that China has been shielding Pakistan for a very long time. It impacts not just their neighbors, but also America's interests. How serious a threat do they pose in your view?
Look, Pakistan's been an ally in the war on terror. Sometimes we've had good days and sometimes we haven't had good days. You know, when I was in the White House and before, when I was at Breitbart, when I was in the White House and then after, one of my things is to be able to hold Pakistan accountable, right? To hold them accountable for, are they really supporting us in Afghanistan? You know, Afghanistan has been an absolute debacle for the United States of America. We've spent $2 trillion. I think we've lost 2,500 combat casualties, another 25,000 wounded. And we're still there today. I adamantly fought. I thought we should draw down in Afghanistan, leave a conciliatory force and a special force, but really draw down and not spend $65 billion, which we just spent. So the situation over there is very, it's very day to day, and it's a very big concern of, I know, the people that back President Trump. Afghanistan. We look at, India as a natural ally, and we understand there's tension between Pakistan and India. We understand there's tension between China and India. I mean, what struck me so much in this campaign of Modi is how much really Modi as a war leader came up, vis-a-vis China, vis-a-vis Pakistan, vis-a-vis ISIS in places like Sri Lanka. So, look, we're going through a very dangerous time in world history. I have called this the Dark Valley, like the 1930s. The way that we're going to come through this without a conflict, without a general conflict or a regional conflict, I think is pretty straightforward. That reasonable men and women have to come together in leadership positions. And when I look at on our side of the football, and I see Abe in Japan, Modi in India, Trump in the United States, I like what I see in people like Nigel Farage coming up in the UK, Matteo Salvini in Italy, Bolsonaro in Brazil. I like the leaders. I like the cut of the jib of the leaders. And I think people that the three most important, Abe in Japan, Modi in India, and Trump in the United States, are the type of men that can really put together, I think, a very impressive coalition.
Sudhir, if I may add, is the first president of the United States that said, just like Steve said, that United States is going to hold Pakistan accountable. And he did. In many ways. Many different ways. His tweets and his declaration of certain people as terrorists and all that. So he was the first president. Other presidents sort of hesitate, but not this president.
The impression we get in India is that even the US government is not doing enough to control Pakistan. Do you agree with this? Is cutting aid enough? Shouldn't America exert more pressure on Pakistan?
I think that, listen, I'm out of the government now, so I speak as a private citizen, but I speak as somebody that's been engaged in this populist, nationalist, America First, program for 10 years. It's the reason I was brought into the Trump campaign. Very late in the campaign, they were in very bad shape. They were down, 10, 12, 14 points with 88 days to go. I was brought in because I knew the people. I knew what motivated them. I knew how to turn a thing around in a very quick time frame to focus on it. You have to remember the United States has spent $7 trillion in 17 years in the Middle East wars, and people are very frustrated that there haven't been these kind of outcomes. And there's been a lot of finger pointing to Pakistan. I think when Pakistan plays to its better angels, and I think when Pakistan is held accountable, that Pakistan is often a reliable ally. When they're not, they're not. I think the important thing that I would like to emphasize is that I think India in the United States is at a different level. India lives in a very bad neighborhood, right? I think it's why, is it Chowdhury?
Chowkidar.
Chowkidar. I think it's one of the reasons that Modi used that phrase, I'm the watchman.
Right.
Because I think this gets to the point. Right now in world history, India's got a very uncertain path going forward. And the simple fact of the neighborhood with China, terrorism, potentially Pakistan. And I think that's why it takes maturity, it takes statesmanship, it takes leadership And that's what I think Trump and Modi bring to the table. And that's what I think in the United States, people that are supportive of the nationalism that Modi represents sees that he wins such a resounding victory, and particularly in India, you may not have gotten all the negativity about Modi from the mainstream media. The same people that hate Trump hate him, right? And every day it's just an onslaught of how this is going to be a tight race, of how Modi, all these different aspects. And for him to win such a resounding victory, and for that victory really be his personal victory in the fact that, the polling shows that I think a third of the voters would not have voted for BJP if Modi had not been ahead of the ticket. So this is very analogous to Reagan's second victory when he won the largest landslide in American history. I think that Modi and Trump make perfect partners, perfect allies, the United States and India, and we have to recognize the danger of the situation in the Indo-Pacific, and particularly around the Indian Ocean.
Mr. Bannon, let's talk about the media now. You know the beast like few others do. During Donald Trump's campaign, you said the media was behaving like an opposition party. And here in India also, Prime Minister Modi has been targeted by the media. The Western media especially, like the Time magazine, has branded him as divider-in-chief. What would you say to this?
Well, hold it. He was attacked by that on a cover story. This wasn't a story buried into the paper. This was a cover story. Look, my belief is the following. If you, and every Bolsonaro, Salvini, Trump, Modi, if you're a nationalist leader, if you're a leader that puts the interest of your country first, the interest of the citizens of your country first, you're going to be attacked nonstop by the people that support the globalists. And Time magazine is a perfect example, and others. And as a person that lives in the West, that lives between, I live in D.C. and in New York, I'm in the United States, but I spend a lot of time in Europe. I read all the dailies of all the big English dailies in Europe, in the United States. Modi is relentlessly attacked. Why is he attacked? Because he puts India's interests first.
Mr. Bannon, let's now talk about nationalism. It's been a big issue in US. President Trump's slogan was, "Make America Great Again." In India too, nationalism is a major issue. The BJP campaigned on this plank. Prime Minister Modi has been talking about it. Yet, some sections of society and media look down upon it. Do you think being a nationalist is wrong?
No, in fact, I think the exact opposite. I'm a nationalist. I think nationalism is basically supporting what I call the Westphalian system, or the Treaty of Westphalia. For the last 300 years is essentially how the West and the world has run itself, through individual nation states. In the West, and particularly in the Catholic Church and the Christian, we have this concept called subsidiarity. It means pushing decision-making down as close to the citizen as possible, because that's where the little guy, the common man, has most control.
Mr. Bannon, you have been a prominent campaign manager. How do you see Prime Minister Modi's victory this time? What lessons does it have for leaders contesting elections elsewhere in the world?
It's a great question, and that's why I point to Modi all the time, is that, number one, be yourself. Modi's a leader, and I think that he comes from humble origins. He doesn't come across as arrogant or a mean person, but a very humble person, a good person. But he will not back down 1 inch on what he believes. And most importantly, what he believes is in the interest of the citizens of India and his nation. And that's why I tell people, I said, if you want, and this is why this victory is so important. It's so important to other leaders in the world, because I say, look, do what Modi did. What Modi did is what Reagan did. Reagan spoke to the common man, and they connected. Reagan had the media against him. They tried to destroy Reagan. They tried to destroy Modi. The same exact media companies that have attacked Modi attacked Reagan 30 and 40 years ago. And Modi did not flinch. He did not back up. He didn't apologize. In fact, he doubled down and tripled down. And because the people in India, I think, which is the only market that counts, said, hey, I admire him. I believe in him. When he says the watchman, and he took that thing of a very humble thing in the humble districts of India, he connected with people. And I think in a very difficult time, with an economy that's still in a turnaround, they said, hey, this is my guy, and he gave him a resounding victory. So I tell every leader that I see, and this is why I'm so proud that we met Shalli years ago, 6 years ago now, and he really got us thinking about Modi. We were the first site to talk about Modi as Reagan. And if you look at it, there's been no leader on the world stage over that period of time that has stuck to his beliefs, and the citizens have rewarded him with just an incredible landslide victory to empower him. And frankly, Modi now takes his position on the world stage because now he's a world leader. This is a very significant time in Indian history, and obviously we're in a very important historical time with this geostrategic relationship between the West and China, and India will be a central part of that, and Modi will be one of the leaders in that.
One of the most important things to me with respect to Modi was that he was the first prime minister who came on board who was totally committed to eradicating corruption. And I saw him as a chief minister of Gujarat, how he did it, and how he was going to do that across the nation. It wasn't totally successful, but at least he is the right guy to do it. And where the phrase Congress gave "Chaukidar chor hai," Chaukidar is a thief. That's what the opposition said, but it did not stick. And the country believed that he is really a Chaukidar, and he is the watchman for the interest of Indian citizens. So that stuck very well.
So my next question is on right wing. Do you see the rise of the right wing globally now, and especially after Mr. Modi's second victory?
Merkel will be pushed out of the Christian Democrats in Germany. I think she will step down. And I think Macron's going to have a horrific, the internal polling that I just saw put the national rally under Le Pen at 25.5% and Macron at 23.5%. This would be an incredible, stunning defeat for him. So I think you're seeing the rise of these nationalist parties, the rise of these populist parties. I think Modi has been an example to many people about how to lead your country, and how even if things are tough and it looks like it's not going your way, what people don't want is people that just back off and don't believe in anything. They want leaders who are authentic. They want leaders who believe in themselves and believe in their cause, and they're prepared to support that. So yes, I think you're going to see many more what I call right-wing leaders, because I'm a right-winger, in Latin America. I think you're going to see more of them in South Asia. I think you'll start seeing it in Southeast Asia. I think that this is a worldwide movement, and it's got a commonality that Modi identified years ago. The little guy, citizens want someone strong in the room representing their interest when these type of deals are made. And that's what Trump represents, that's what Farage represents, that's what Le Pen, Salvini, Bolsonaro, Abe, and Prime Minister Modi.
Mr. Bannon, now we can clearly see a global trend here. Like Mr. Putin is back with a fresh mandate, Modi is back with a fresh mandate, Shinzo Abe in Japan is back with a fresh mandate. Do you also see Mr. Trump coming back to office?
It's a great question. Listen, Trump's president for one central reason, that the American working class, particularly in the upper Midwest, what we call the Rust Belt of Ohio and Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, areas of the country that Shalli is very important, knows very well, and quite frankly, was very helpful in 2016. He was a key part in the Hindu Republican Association, was a key element of our victory in 16. He understands how tough it was and how tight that race was. Remember, we won by basically 75,000 votes in 5 counties in those upper Midwest states because the Democrats just laughed at us and thought there was no way that Trump could ever communicate with Democrats and working class people. President Trump has got an incredibly difficult re-election ahead of him. The economy in the United States is doing incredible. What President Trump has promised, he's delivered on. Unfortunately, the reality is we have an opposition party media that's even stronger than it is in India. And it has been relentless every day, hammering President Trump, hammering President Trump, hammering President Trump. Now, it turns out we lost the midterm elections in the House of Representatives, and that's a key thing. Because even though the Mueller report and all these investigations completely clear President Trump, they're now able to do it all over again in what I call weaponizing. And we are, sir, what I have said is in one of the most ugly and difficult times in American political history since before our Civil War. It's very brutal. It's very nasty. Every day they're trying to open another investigation on Trump, on his family finances, his business, his taxes, things totally unrelated to his conduct as president. You have to remember, we have an economy that's on fire right now. 3.2% growth, lowest black unemployment in history, lowest Hispanic unemployment in 40 years, lowest overall unemployment since 1969. Wages are coming up, stock market's up, bond market's is stable. You couldn't have a better economic scenario for the United States. And yet Trump is every day, he's relentlessly hit. Now, there's definitely a path to victory, and as the person came in, the CEO, and headed up the campaign to lead it to victory for President Trump, I see a path that you can win, but it's going to be very tough. And I don't think we're going to know who the winner is until late on the night in November 2020. But President Trump is very competitive. I strongly believe he's going to win, and I think he's going to win actually with bigger numbers than he did in 2016. But your audience should understand this is going to be a very difficult, very nasty election in the United States. No, it's very important. Shalli put on an event for us towards the end of the campaign. It's one of the most powerful events we had and was able to energize us in driving forward. But if you look at those upper Midwest states, in fact, we're going to do something with Shalli, not related to the campaign, but related to China, with the Hindu American Association in late June in Illinois. But it's to get the word out to those Midwest states. This upper Midwest is where the presidential election in 2020 is going to be decided there. Joe Biden launched his campaign in Pennsylvania. Bernie Sanders launched his campaign in Iowa. Everybody understands that those 5 or 6 states is where this is going to be decided. They're going to be all over it. You can't win this one unless you've got the Hindu American and the Hindu Republican alliance as a partner like we had last time. So Shalli, who's much more experienced in politics than I am, will tell you, this is going to be, if 16 was tough, this is going to be even tougher.
Okay, lastly, a personal question. I'm told you are an avid reader of the Bhagavad Gita. You follow the Hindu philosophy. I'm very curious to know what got you so interested in Hindu mythology.
Yes, that's true. One of the most powerful books that I'm a Roman Catholic and a devout Catholic. I try to be as devout as I can. I'm a practicing Catholic. But one of the most powerful books as a young person I read was a book by a Frenchman called Man and His Becoming According to the Vedanta. And that got me very interested in Hindu spirituality and the study of Hindu religions. And there's another book by a German professor called The Philosophy of India by a professor named, I believe his name was Zimmer, who wrote this book in the 1930s or 1940s. Had a very powerful impact on me. So I've studied to the degree that one can study. I've taken a lot of time over my life to study Hindu spirituality.
Mr. Bannon, thank you so much for sharing your time, for sharing your thoughts and your perspective with us. It was good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.